Love between the parent and the child is the closest to the vibration of authenticity that love can ever get. Love is just the fuel to the vehicle of authenticity that parents are using to raise these children into the world. And the plan is to not keep love out of the equation, like they say, fear versus love. It's really to keep authentic beings out of the equation. The they are not threatened by love. They just want you to think that they are threatened by love. Authenticity is actually what holds deception accountable, not love. Love is the civil rights movement to the authentic revolution. There's a depopulation program because new beings are closer to who they truly are. And yes, they don't want you to have kids, but why don't they want you to have kids? Is it because they think overpopulation is damaging the earth and they care about nature? No. It's because, like people who have broken out of the illusions, children are born with the eyes that can see the world through the filter of authenticity, through the bullshit. And the schools are designed to catch kids at the beginning of the high velocity growth phase in order to lock them into a growth pattern of anti-authenticity. Once they start there and are surrounded by peers who do the same thing, like a drug addict, it's hard to break that pattern. Parents then reinforce these patterns and even punish those who deviate from the anti-authentic algorithm. This is then maintained and inflamed until they are adults. And at that point, they are now trained to pass that control grid on to the next generation. And like the growth factor of kindergarten-age children, 18-year-olds are at another peak of growth, which is then dampened by the world of Western adulthood. And the best case scenario is to lock these adult children into reproduction so that they have so much of a difficult time with raising of a child. They can't wait to put their kids into the system of indoctrination because they are thirsting for adult-level toys and games, perpetuating the addiction even further into both generations, and even carrying over into the elder generation because a lot of the time the grandparents are having to close the gaps between their children and the grandchildren. 3 generations locked down as the norm. What then gets lost in all of the chaos is the authenticity and even the baseline levels of love that is needed to set the foundation for authentic and healthy growth, normalizing sick and diseased children and adults. This is how they can hide depopulation under the guilt complex of overpopulation, which also maintains the idea of the systems of control being the parental figures over a world of broken children. They have the answers to the problems of the world, all while censoring the perspectives of the authentic ones and the wisdom keepers who share the information that holds them and their systems accountable for their hands in the causing of these problems. This is why authenticity is more powerful than love. Love doesn't think to seek justice. Authenticity can't be what it is without justice. Love has been artificially beefed up to appear to be a threat on purpose, a controlled opposition, meant to look powerful, but designed to only go so far and eventually fail at the most optimal time that both holds up the illusion of strength and also allows the systems to win the fixed fight against the misinformed. So they don't want you to not have kids. They just don't want you to have kids raised with the consciousness of authenticity. They actually need you to have kids to keep their systems running. They need you to birth their kids. Kids that will be raised under the same umbrella of anti-authenticity with the bonus of also not having even the most basic levels of love. They do this by replacing the idea of love with games, toys, social media, busyness, technology, dopamine, and chaos, to name a few. So imagine testing a child on college level courses, but they've never had elementary or high school level training. No love and no authenticity, floating in a universe of chaos with only the comfort of their indoctrination to guide them through the world. I used to be a proponent for not bringing kids into this sick world, but that sentiment never sat right with me. It always felt like the exact thing the system wants people to think like. Another form of depopulation. Besides that, after now having the experience of bringing a child into this world, now I know that the mindset of the sick world will block all those who fall into that mindset from experiencing authentic love and the depths of authenticity. After myself experiencing and even redefining authentic love, I can't really imagine this experience without that realization. All definitions of love before having a child crumble away like dust. They don't exist. It's 1,000 times more extreme than the difference between love and lust. That chasm between those two definitions, times 1,000, still can't really define what that love between the parent and the child really is. It's undefinable. Romantic love is definable. And when you can define it in that finite state, you can sell it. This is why romanticism type love is what's sold to the world, mostly through the mainstream, as the end-all be-all love. And in that definition, the relationship between the parent and the child gets lost because it just gets balled up into all the other versions of what they say love is, but is actually a planted definition of love as a weapon for one to take away the function of love between the parent and the child. In extreme cases, the love between the parent and their partner, in many cases in this sick-ass world, can overtake the love relationship between a parent and a child. Especially when you have a relationship between two codependents, two narcissists who are only focused on manipulating the relationship for their own benefit. They're so consumed by themselves and each other that the children are just a part of that equation. And in many ways, a part of destroying that equation because they put themselves before their future generations. This is also the intention of the controllers because that relationship is the extreme version of separating the parent from the child, which creates more disease, more sickness, more codependency for not only them, but the future generations. Creating that brokenness, creating that separation from that which is natural so that they will attach themselves to the artificial. And the more you attach yourself to the artificial, the easier it is for you to be controlled. The more you'll want to be controlled in that codependent relationship. This is how the system becomes the parent to the masses. They become your mother. They become your father. And what gets lost in all of these relationships is the function, the reality of love underneath the mainstream broken versions and definitions of love pumped out through romanticism, which sets the foundation for authentic beings. A big part of expressing that authenticity is to know oneself. And if you're too consumed with sickness and disease and codependency, you're so enveloped with just surviving, just getting by, that you don't have time or the wherewithal to ever know yourself, which is at the foundation of true authenticity. So in order to comfort ourselves, we lock ourselves into that mainstream definition of love, which is romanticism, or in many cases, just lust. Locking yourselves into that frequency just to get by, just to have something that feels real. And a lot of the times people are seeking that love in other people from outside sources, even from drugs, from success, from things, from attention. They're seeking that because they never had that foundation from their own parents, because their parents never had that, and so on and so forth. Adding to generations upon generations of anti-authentic beings, rationalizing artificiality as the real, at the expense of authenticity. No less than 3 degrees of separation from ever being a threat to the systems who created these control measures. This is how, like in the Matrix, you are birthing batteries for this system, because your children are not your own. And the people who are of the biggest threat to these systems are attacked even further, literally installing drugs and guns into the community, redlining people into communities of self-destruction, food deserts, poisoned water, toxins leaking into the waters, into the air, from the pollution from the industries that these houses are built around. There is a definite focus on a particular type of people. This is where the system of racism and white supremacy fits into this discussion. It's not a clear observation across the board. Oh, we're all being attacked. No, that's the oversimplification of what's really going on here. And largely that comes about from people who are dealing with the guilt complex. They don't know how to deal with that situation. And people who are largely uninformed because this is not their experience. So all they have to do is to emotionally regurgitate onto you as if your experience and your take on this situation is actually adding to the problems of the world. This is why they say when you talk about systems of racism and white supremacy, to generate an understanding, to help people heal from that situation, just the very act of discussing this feels like an attack to them because of that guilt complex. And the only way that they can rationalize your feeling that way and speaking that way is to then lump you in with all the other problems created by the system. You are now a problem no different than the systems that create these problems. And you need to be dismissed, deflected from, or demonized. And once again, that perspective comes from a lack of understanding of themselves. Your seeking to understand the depths of yourself is a threat to people who lock themselves into the illusions, the belief systems that make them feel good, that make them feel loved, that make them feel authentic. So-called white people in this country have very observable problems with genuine love and genuine authenticity. They are just as separated from their ideas of themselves as we are. At least we're still on our own land. Their history has moved them from another location. They have to be in a deeper illusion than we are, because at least we have the direct connection. We still walk around with the fibers of our being tying into the land of which we live. Not only are they separated from their story, but they have the illusory stories that they have to propagate and add on to as the artificial foundation of their anti-authentic reality. We don't have to deal with that guilt complex. We have to deal with other forms, other types of complexes, which are just as effective in keeping you away from your authentic self, in keeping you away from loving yourself, but not as heavy when you're directly connected to a storyline of beings and systems that are still alive and well and very much directly connected to the psychological and spiritual enslavement of masses of people around the world. This is why there is such a push to lock you into a relationship, a deep, loving, authentic relationship with technology, to close the gaps of that organic authenticity, of that organic love, and create the foundation for the next steps. What comes after you've hollowed out everybody so much that they are not only lost from who they truly are, but they are salivating at the mouth for you to tell them who they are, for you to instruct them on who they are supposed to be. You are supposed to be merging with technology. You are supposed to be putting things into your body that we say are beneficial to your experience. You are supposed to be raising your children in this way. You are supposed to be relating to this experience the way we tell you to. This is how the world is rewriting the code of your reality.